Welcome back to Stacking Growth Snacks. I'm Steph Crugnola, and I am here with Senior Copywriter for Refine Labs, Erik Sena. We're going to talk about establishing a unique brand voice, and I'm so excited to have Erik here. Well, his official title is Senior Copywriter. On any given day, Erik's role fluctuates between idea broker, dot connector, brand obsessive, and occasional armchair anthropologist. With 7 years of experience in marketing and advertising, Erik has developed creative campaigns and executions for brands like Google Store, BlackBerry, Foursquare, and Zscaler at agencies across the United States. Erik, I'm so excited to have you with me today, but we're going to start with some food questions. So, Erik, what was your favorite childhood snack?
I think my favorite childhood snack has to be Gushers, hands down. I mean, for me, I could go through boxes and boxes of those as a kid. Admittedly, even still today, honestly.
All right, diving into our topic at hand, we're going to kick this off with an exploration of finding your voice. So first off, why is it so important to establish a consistent brand voice?
For me, I think it's important to establish a consistent brand voice because it really helps you establish your own unique identity and personality as a brand, right? It gives customers a sort of calling card, if you will, something to remember you by. And I think ultimately helps you stand out and break through the noise. And so when we talk about brand voice, it's like everyone has their voice just as a person, as an individual. And I think that's the big piece here is like giving your brand individuality and giving your brand something that helps you stand out sort of amongst the crowd. Because as we know, B2B is very saturated these days. How do you find something that your customers can point to and be like, all right, that is Google, that is Amazon, that is BlackBerry or what have you. So I think that is the most important part there.
And where do you start when you're constructing a brand voice? How do you incorporate brand values and your target audience and all of the other million things that you have to consider into your writing?
When I'm coming up with a brand voice, right? When I'm really starting at the ground level, I start with why. I start asking questions. I start really at the heart of everything. So if you're not familiar with Simon Sinek, he's a great author, a great keynote speaker, and he has this concept of the golden circle. He says that most brands, whether they're in the B2B space or B2C space, when selling and marketing themselves, start with what they're selling, what's their product, what's their service, how do they go about selling the service, and how do they go about creating everything, sort of what's the process behind that. And then from there, they go to the why. It's sort of these like a series of concentric circles ending at the why. Like, why does your brand exist? What is your brand's purpose? What is your brand's mission? What is your brand's ethos and things like that? So with the golden circle, Simon Sinek sort of flips that and he starts with why, right? He starts with, why does your brand exist? Why do you do what you do? Why do you wake up in the morning? Goes to the how. How is it done? How does your product or service work? And then again, the what, really ending at the most practical part of your brand. What exactly is it that you do at the most pragmatic level? And so I think for me, that sense of starting with the why is sort of how I go about starting this process of developing a brand voice is, what do you care about? What do your customers care about? And what sort of things can you latch onto as far as you mentioned, values, principles as a brand? Like, what are your virtues as a brand and things like that? So definitely all about your target audience, or as we say, the ICP, and really finding what they care about and having that common ground between your brand and them.
When you're starting to craft this, do you do any research into competitors? Do you research their writing, subscribe to their newsletter? Do you do research to try and land on your own place in that landscape?
Yes and no. I think a little bit of light research is necessary. I think you should have a very fundamental understanding of your competition and the sort of the landscape, but anything more than that, I feel like is almost excessive, right? Because I'm of the mindset that too much research is almost a burden, something that can really cloud your judgment and make your voice sound like everyone else's, which we don't want that. And especially in the B2B space, as I mentioned, it's so saturated that it's easy to sound like the next cybersecurity brand. It's easy to sound like the next cloud technology brand. But I think for me, it's about researching culture, researching your audience, as I mentioned, your ICP, finding their tensions that need solving, essentially. What problems do they have And from there, what insights can you derive from those problems, right? To come up with the solution that you ultimately come up with. And so, I think research is necessary to a point, but for me, all the research should be about your audience, or I would say maybe 90% of the research should be about your audience and really studying them, sort of being, I call it almost being like an anthropologist of sorts, and really being observant and asking questions and being curious. And so that is the extent of the research, I think. But that's my opinion.
Erik, thank you so much. This has been amazing. We will see y'all next time to talk about staying consistent in your brand voice.